Hello, welcome back to the ministry. This is Taj McCameron, and today we are talking about moving from warfare to wisdom. I decided to title this because I feel like it's a best title for it because we've gone through our season of wilderness. We're at the end. We packed. We ready to go. The season's over. It's time to walk out. We marching out of this. March is the time that we coming out of our wilderness season. God is about to transplant us from where we are to where we're going. Things are about to shift, and they're going to shift in such a way that some of us are going to be like, how did I get from here to there? I don't know. God already showed me in several dreams. I'm not going to know how I got from here to there. I just saw that I was in one place and ended up in another. You ain't gonna know how you got there, but understand. The enemy knows that you got extra angels on you because now's the time that God is ushering you into that next thing. And because God is ushering you into that next thing, you got monitoring spirits trying to figure out where you going, when you going, what time you leaving, and so on and so forth. Be well aware of the people that become extremely interested. What you doing? What you up to? Let me tell you something. Listen to me very, 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 very closely and very carefully, okay? The enemy has no new tricks. All he knows is the old tricks that he always ever knew. With every season, you're going to kill a set of the enemy's monitoring spirits. It just happens. The enemies that you see in that season, you don't see anymore, but that doesn't mean that there aren't going to be a new set of enemies that look damn near exactly like the ones that you just killed come in a second. Because that set of demons can't come back. It said this in the word. The enemy goes and sees that his house is swept clean. He can't go back in there, but he can send 7 demons worse than the one that was banished from there. You got to keep your eyes and ears open and be discerning of the fact that he's going to try to send 7 more. Okay? What am I saying? You are no longer in warfare. Does it feel like warfare? Yes. It feels like warfare. But your season of warfare is over. Right now, you're dealing with residuals. Come on, Jesus. Give me that word. You're literally dealing with, let me be honest with you, you're dealing with aftershocks. Come on, God. High five in the spirit. You're dealing with residual aftershocks. I talked about PTSD after the season of warfare. You deal with that. But right now, you're dealing with aftershocks. What the enemy is doing is he's testing you. The Lord always allows a test. Remember, Job was Satan was operating or walking through heaven, and God said, "What are you doing up here?" And he said, "Looking for somebody I can devour." What did God do? I got somebody you can try. Test my servant Job. God allows every situation to test you that tests you. He does. Death can't do, minions can't do, can't none of them do anything that God did not allow them to do. Because God knows you're going to pass every test. He knows this. He knows that in each season, there are only a certain amount of things that you can handle. He allows you to be tested to that limit. What the enemy does is he likes to bring back previous tests just to test to see if you will let him in. He will allow new minions to test you with old sins, old iniquities, old things, in order to bring back a memory I've told you this before. He does this. So if you're wise and you're using wisdom, you will say, oh, I've been this route before. Oh, I recognize this. Oh, you're doing what they did. Oh, this situation resembles that situation. Okay, then you have to, in that very moment, come to the realization, and this is when you must commiserate with the Lord and say, Lord, is this a situation in which I need to move forward in? Thank you, Apostle Youngblood. Apostle Youngblood was talking about this the other day. A lot of us see situations and scenarios that look like Egypt. We are in the median between the promised land and Egypt, and we see something that looks like Egypt coming back to get us. We see something that looks like our past. Pay close attention to what I'm saying. That's what sirens mean. You see things that look like what we've been through, and we start running in the opposite direction. And God's saying, I need you to stand still. This is not going to play out the way that you thought it was, but you must stand in it so that when it comes towards you, I can kill it. Think of it like this. God does this to you. This is why we have post-traumatic stress disorder after a wilderness season. It's like God said, I need you to stand in this train track. And you're like, God, it's a train track. God's like, I know. Stand in the middle of the train track. And you're like, God, it's a train track. A train's going to come through here. God's like, exactly. And you're like, you want me to stand in the train track? And God's like, yeah, I need you to stand in the middle of the train track. And you're like, it's a train track, Jesus. He's like, I know what I'm doing. Stand there. Then you start to see the train coming. And you're like, God, that's a train. God, that's a train coming. This train has all of your past issues, all of your fears, all of your doubts, all of your money problems, all of your family issues, all of your what have you, all the things that you have tried to run from and escape. This is what's on that train. And you seeing it barreling straight towards you. You're like, God, we just went through warfare, a season of wilderness, and all this type of stuff, and we went through healing and all of this type of stuff. Why are you allowing this train to come at me? And it's like, I need it to come at you. Just stand there. I need to come at you. God, the train is coming. I know. God, the train's getting closer. I know. God, the train is about 5 feet from me. What are you doing? God's like, I know. You see that train hit about 1 foot from you, and at the point that it hits 1 foot from you, you see an invisible wall that the train strikes head on. You see the fire, the brimstone, the impact of the train hitting that wall, but you had to stand within 1 foot of the invisible wall, because the invisible wall is about 1 foot thick, and it literally demolished the train. But you had to stand there. And you're standing there traumatized because you're like, God, that's the way you had to kill it? That's the way you had to kill it? I couldn't have stood over there while you let the train just hit the invisible wall. Why'd I have to stand in front waiting for it to hit the invisible wall? Some of you, God has allowed you to be in situations where He allowed the pressure of the thought of the train hitting you. Raise your hand if y'all haven't been going through mental warfare, mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and social warfare as of recently. Family members that you know act up, start acting up again, and all of a sudden, situations start to look funny. All of a sudden. uh you starting to see situations, you know that you got to go into this next season, but you don't know how, and you starting to have flashbacks to what your old season, the last time you did a jump and leap out, looked like. You starting to have those familiar anxiety feelings trying to come up in the pit of your stomach. You starting to have melancholy memories of X, Y, and Z. All of these bombardments are happening all right now. All of these things are coming to happen right now when you are about to transition over into something new. And the one thing God is showing you is He's not going to show you how you're going to get to the other side. He just is showing you, I'm going to make sure you comfortably reach the opposite side. He never shows you a struggle. He never shows you a fight. And he's like, it's like, I know the last time you leaped out here, it looked like you went down on some rocks. You crashed. You felt like you hit jagged edges. And I know I got you a parachute this time. And you're going to land smoothly. I know. But you're starting to see the debris. You're starting to see, as you get closer to the landing pad, everything from your past trying to rush towards you. You're starting to see it. You see it. And you're like, Jesus, what are we doing? And God's like, I know what I'm doing. I just need to bring these things up so that you do not mess up what I'm about to take you into. Which brings me to the central core of this word. Beware of the counterfeit opportunities. These counterfeit opportunities are people, places, seasons, and situations that are going to mimic things that are comfortable for you. They look good, but they are too good to be true. They just right, meaning it's the job that's just right, it's the apartment that's just right, it's the very thing that's just, it's exactly what you prayed for, but it's positioned in the wrong space. Example, you're supposed to move to that city, but you get an offer for an apartment in the one you're in that matches exactly to a T the apartment in which you wanted when you were in the other city. All the amenities, everything's perfect. But you're not supposed to stay here. Perfect example, the prophetess I listened to, but that's before her husband left his job. The day he was leaving to give his key to leave out for the job, the boss offered him a position. He was going to double his salary if he stayed. It was not his position to stay where he was. But that offer looked real nice, I bet you. Be careful. Next, understand that there's going to be it's an offer to ease you or keep you in the surroundings of the immediate people that it's an offer that is set up to intimidate you and dominate you, meaning it's going to give you the position, or it's a specific type of situation that is literally going to test your desire to stay by intimidating you, throwing at you, well, you don't have this, so you better take that. You ain't got that, so this is the best offer for you. I remember I was listening to one of the ministers I listened to, and she talked about a meeting that occurred with a bunch of business people. And they were brought in for the meeting. They were wined, dined, and all of these things. They were given a bunch of gifts and gift, what have you. They were going to be given, what do they call it when people give them certain types of gifts? I forget what the types of gifts are, but a lot of presidential Congress, all these types of people, it's these particular types of gifts that they cannot accept. But I can't think of the specific word they call it. But once you accept the gift is the trick. You accept it, and then they can say, oh, you accepted the gift. Now you have to do what I asked you to do. You see how that works? You got to be careful of offers of doing, well, you accepted this part, and by you accepting this, you automatically. This is why I stomped into y'all heads when I did the marriage certificate thing. Why you have to be careful. If you don't know who your God ordained spouse is, you gotta pray, because in this season, God's about to release your God ordained spouse, and he coming fast. And because your God ordained spouse is coming fast, the enemy will release somebody that is an exact duplicate opposite, that looks good on the outside, got the finest, the best teeth, the most awesomeness. Everything is super fine about the particular person, exactly identical to what your God ordained spouse is going to be. But guess what? They're going to try to test your ability and desire for companionship more than your desire to be married. Meaning they're willing to sleep with you. They're like, oh, if you just sleep with me, oh, if you just this with me, oh, if you just this, but they won't secure you. Let me tell you something. I said it in that one. They will set you up in such a way that everything looks good on paper. But there's one thing, and I didn't say this in that video. When you have official documentation, the only thing that makes documents legal is notary. You have to have a notary stamp with the embossing of the stamp that proves that these are original documents. You realize you can have the exact same stack of papers, everything be exactly identical, but if there's no notarization proving the claim that this is official documentation, those papers are worthless. That I did not say in that video. This is what a counterfeit opportunity will do. It will create something that will look darn near identical, but it holds no official weight to it. Which means in the point in time in which you need to cash out or pull out or do whatever with what it was that you thought you had, all you had was a worthless piece of paper. Because it was not notarized. It did not have the official stamp on it. You don't want to get caught up in stuff like that. That's what I was saying in the interlude. I'm not going to go through all the stuff that I went through in that, but yeah. Go watch that 5 parts. You can see it in the playlist because all of them have a marriage license on the front of it. It's just wisdom. That's what we're talking about. Because you got to be careful. Because now You're about to walk into your inheritance and the enemy is shaking in its boots. Be clear, be concise, because offers, opportunities, relationships, friendships, partnerships. I can't tell you how many different things I could tell you. And let me tell you something. I remember there was somebody I was supposed to be doing a partnership with, but guess what? They didn't understand how thorough I was. They were like, oh, we're going to do this partnership, blah, blah, blah. I was like, oh, okay. And we sat down. We had a full, thorough conversation. I took that conversation that we had, wrote it up in a word for word, what I said to her, what she said to me, all this type of stuff. Went to a web page that I could literally draw up a contract. This is what we discussed. This is what we said. This is what this is. This is what this is. All of that. I went in. I used the terms, the conditions, all of that. When I showed that girl that paperwork, she got completely freaked out. She's like, "Oh, I'm gonna take it to my friend, and he gonna read it over, and then we gonna discuss it." And I was like, "Okay, but we ain't gonna start to work on it until you sign the papers." Legalities. We come into agreement on it. We'll pay for the fullness of the paperwork, then everything gets signed up. I do not play about anything that I am doing. Because you've got to make sure everything is legally set up. I remember somebody came to me. It's like, "Oh, I want you to be the figurehead for the they were doing some nonprofit, and they needed me to be the spokesperson that was the mainstay person from the center representative for that nonprofit." I had a business meeting that afternoon. I was going to a business dinner, and I was able to go and sit. I didn't know everything about that kind of situation, but I knew that at that business dinner, I was going to run into people that did. So I went in that dinner, came in the best outfit that I had, walked around there, and started talking. I mentioned the scenario that I was in, and they started giving me business advice. I was like, "Oh, okay." That guy was supposed to call me back a couple days later. I got back with him when he was supposed to contact me. And I started to explain to him line by line, this is how this is going to operate if I'm going to be the figure for your company. And he was like, I don't want to do all that. He politely got me off of the phone, and I never heard from him again. Counterfeit offers. You got to be aware, because now you are in a season that you must use wisdom. You have stood in the dark season. You've made it through the wilderness. You are no longer in warfare. Right now, you are strategically being tested on what's necessary in order for you to be able to walk into the promise. You are at the edge of your promise. You are being prepared to walk into it. Pass any type of test that which you need to pass, because you're there. Some of you have already passed the test. And some of you already know that you passed the test. Right now, you're in limbo waiting. Your bags is packed. Your whatever it is that you need, you waiting. Because it's done. It's complete. It's finished. And now, you're about to take off. Be prepared, because you're about to take off. So, I'm going to mention this. Deani Neves did an open rebuke in one of her videos. She was openly rebuking people coming at her like they were her husband. She know who her husband is. And these people were adamantly disrespecting her in her emails. Point I want to make. This is how these counterfeits are operating. Be very careful. I'm talking about not just people. I'm not just God ordained. I want to be in a love relationship. I'm talking about business people trying to make business acquisitions with you. Which brings me back to what I was saying before. You have to be careful about the wording people are using. The enemy doesn't do anything new. He's going to keep coming back at you. If you notice that an offer comes to you from one person and you reject it, pay close attention to what that person said. If you didn't accept that offer, if the enemy is cunning, he's going to send somebody with the exact same offer. When I say exact same offer, I mean word for word for word for word for word. Exact. Because he does nothing new. The wording is going to be darn near identical because he does nothing new. This is how I figured out when people were being used by the devil to try to get information out of me. They always came back to back, and you would have thought that the person that you just got off the phone with to ask you that question called the person that just called you a few hours later, and gave them the rundown. Oh, she didn't answer, so I'm gonna have you call her because you gonna ask her the same questions. It's like they read the exact same script, the exact same words, word for word, and you know these two people don't know each other. It's like, this is how the enemy works. He can do nothing new. So be prepared. Keep your ears open. Keep your eyes open. Be aware and seek God. Stay in your consecrated place. Hear God. Have wisdom from God. Allow the Lord to lead you, because there's always an answer. God will give you an answer in plain sight. He may not verbally tell you, but he'll give you the answer right in front of you. Perfect example. Look at my word called a supernatural GPS system. I talk about a drive, and it's funny, I was looking at the document that I wrote that write up on yesterday. God is your supernatural GPS system. Sometimes he won't directly give you the answer in the middle of a test, but if you're paying close attention, the trigger to remind you of what the answer is might be sitting in the same space around you. Maybe he gave you a video. Maybe he gave you something just prior to that, within 24 hours, within a dream, within a movie you looked at, within a video you looked at, you saw a poster on a wall that had a specific statement in it. It was something you saw just before the test occurred. And if you remember that, and he'll give you something to jog your memory in relation to it in the middle of the test. It's almost like God's form of clip notes. Pay close attention. That he'll give it to you. You just got to be aware and understand that you're in a test. As soon as you understand that, you'll figure out what the answer is. It's funny. I was looking at a movie, Jennifer Lopez movie, Marry Me, and the guy said if you sit in the space or something like that, the answer will come. It's the same thing as standing and seeing the salvation of the Lord. But you have to stand in the middle of it. And with that, I don't know whether it was the beginning of this or in the other video, but I said that I was going to go over 727. We are in a season of takeoffs. And it's funny because in Deani's video where she did the open rebuke, she said that there were planes flying overhead. And she had like 7 planes fly over her head while she was recording that video. And a lot of us are in a season where we're about to take off. But what the enemy wants to do, and I had a dream of this, he wants you to take off and drop you like a weight. This is why you need to have wisdom in this season. So let me see if I can find the meaning of each of these plane numbers. Hold on. Okay, so I was doing some research and the Lord brought to my attention 727, 747, 757, and 70. So let's just look at this for a minute, okay? 7 is a form of completion. 0, God's in the middle.